Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving straight into a seriously chilling case file today, looking at a family who basically walked right into a paranormal trap. I'll be your host, and together, we're gonna unpack the terrifying events that unfolded inside House No. 7. We're breaking down exactly how a literal dream home morphed into an inescapable nightmare. So let's just start with a hypothetical. Picture this. Would you live in a luxurious two-story house for just 5,000 rupees a month? I mean, it sounds incredible, right? It's the kind of deal you dream about. But as we're about to see, what looked like the absolute deal of a lifetime was actually the ultimate bait.
All right, let's get into phase one, the bait.
You know, every trap needs a good lure. And for Amit Verma, a government worker who just got transferred to this quiet little village, this house was just way too good to pass up. Now, a monthly rent of 5,000 rupees for a massive property, come on, that is a glaring neon red flag. But Amit completely ignored it. Why? Well, the estate agent Ravi had this very smooth, plausible excuse ready to go. He claimed the overseas owner was loaded, didn't need the money, and just wanted someone to maintain the place. Honestly, it's a perfect, terrifying example of human psychology. We just so easily accept what we desperately want to hear.
Because honestly, on paper, the property seemed completely idyllic. Look at this setup. A beautiful two-story house right on the village outskirts, complete with this lush garden and these vintage iron swings. It was surrounded by trees, perfectly situated with a view of the highway on one side, and get this, a view of Amit's office from the other. It checked literally every single box. But here's where things start to splinter. While Amit is seeing this practical paradise, his wife, Neha, gets an immediate, deeply unsettling vibe during their very first walkthrough of the property.
Talk about cognitive dissonance. Just look at the stark contrast here. On the one hand, you've got the agent's pitch. It's safe, it's quiet, it's cheap, the owner just needs a caretaker. But the unsettling reality? This house had been locked up tight for years, and locals were actively abandoning the surrounding area to move to the city. While Ravi kept offering these perfectly logical excuses, the hard truth was that this was an isolated, abandoned property that nobody else in the entire village wanted to touch with a 10-foot pole.
Which brings us right to phase two, the catalyst.
Okay, so moving in was just the start of the nightmare. The real horror of this case was unleashed because of how they entered the home. Amit, who was a strict atheist, completely skipped the traditional Griha Pravesh, the housewarming puja, and he flat out refused to set up a temple in the new home. So from day one, minute one, the house was completely devoid of any spiritual protection, and that left the family incredibly vulnerable to whatever energy was already waiting for them inside.
And that vulnerability was put to the test almost immediately. Neha decides she wants to clean the upper floor, right? Well, she finds one of the rooms is completely locked. Unwilling to just leave it be, she actually goes and gets a key made. But when she finally opens that upstairs door, she doesn't find some hidden treasure. She finds this surprisingly large space containing almost nothing. Just an old wooden almara, a single broken chair, and some creepy old toys scattered in the corner. She noted it felt exactly like someone had fled the room in an absolute blind panic, leaving only these remnants behind. She didn't know it at the time, but actually, scratch that, she had literally just opened Pandora's box. And that plunges us into phase 3, the manifestation. Once that door was unlocked, the dormant energy woke up. The escalation here is just methodical and terrifying. It starts off small, kitchen lights flickering, mysterious shadows darting around when Neha is alone. Standard creepy stuff, right? But then it targets the kids. Their young son, Arav, starts having full-on play sessions with an invisible boy and an old woman. And it peaks when the teenage daughter, Driti, comes home from school to this putrid, rotting stench filling the kitchen. These entities were growing bolder and more physical by the day. You know what's really wild here, though? The absolute denial. Look at how this family is reacting. Amit's stubborn logic completely blinded him to the actual danger. He's constantly brushing off the horrifying stuff his family is facing, rationalizing that the invisible friends are just a child's bad dream, and the weird locked room was just because the owner left in a hurry. Meanwhile, Neha and the kids are living in a waking nightmare of unexplained footsteps, looming shadows, and unseen entities literally snatching toys right out of the kids' hands. The whole situation finally reaches a boiling point when the entities just stop hiding altogether. Driti walks into the kitchen and witnesses an old woman and a young boy sitting right there on the floor. And they were eating this black, rotting food that filled the entire room with that horrific stench of decay. They were now actively, physically occupying the family's living space in the most grotesque way you can imagine. There was no ignoring it anymore. Now we enter phase 4,
the intervention. So, with ghosts literally hanging out in their kitchen, Amit is finally forced to call on the pros to take his house back. First up, they try the scientific route. Paranormal investigator Dr. Anshul Mira rolls in with a heavy tech. But the investigation goes completely sideways almost the second it starts. They set up their EMF meters, temperature sensors, voice recorders, the whole shebang, and they walk into that formerly locked upstairs room. Instantly, the EMF meters start shrieking with this deafening noise, and then, boom, all the equipment batteries simultaneously drain down to zero. The entities completely overpowered their scientific gear in a matter of seconds. Dr. Anshul's conclusion is chillingly simple. These spirits are very powerful. Science tapped out. It completely failed them. And this absolute defeat leaves Amit with no choice but to escalate things and bring in a spiritual specialist, Tantric Mahakalgiri. Now, before the Tantric even attempts an exorcism, he lays down some intense survival rules. The family has to keep a diya, an oil lamp, constantly lit in the courtyard, and they are absolutely, under no circumstances, allowed to cook any food inside the house. Just think about that for a second. Think about how dangerous and corrupted the ambient energy in a house has to be where cooking a basic meal is considered a massive risk. So the cleansing begins, and it immediately turns into an absolute nightmare. As the Tantric is chanting mantras and throwing holy water, the areas touched by the spirits literally turn pitch black in front of their eyes. Objects inside that upstairs room start violently flying around. Massive explosive sounds start detonating from inside the walls themselves. And just like before, the investigators' equipment completely dies. The exorcism is an utter failure. It proved once and for all that these entities weren't just haunting the house, they totally owned it. Which brings us to our final act, Phase 5, the aftermath. This is my house. Get out of here. Defeated by this overwhelming force, the family is forced to swallow a horrifying pill. They are the trespassers. That quote, that was the exact terrifying threat that Neha heard echoing out of the upstairs room. It happened right after she bravely went up there to check on a strange noise, pushed the door open, and saw the unblinking, dead bodies of the old woman and the boy lying on the floor, staring right back at her. And here is the absolute kicker, the ultimate tragedy of this whole explainer. The Tantric later revealed that these ancient spirits, they were previously imprisoned inside that locked room. By getting a key made and opening that door just to store some extra luggage, the family broke a powerful spiritual seal. They made it literally impossible to ever remove the entities again. They didn't just rent a haunted house, they unwittingly shattered a paranormal prison. The fallout is just bleak. Amit and his family obviously immediately flee the property. Shortly after that, news actually makes it back to the village that the overseas owner mysteriously died. The house is permanently abandoned and locked up tight once again. And local legend says that the ghost's warning can still be heard by anyone who gets too close, leaving house number 7 as a permanent, untouched monument to the supernatural. So, I want to leave you with this chilling thought today. Considering everything we've just unpacked, if you heard that raspy voice echoing from the upstairs room, would you ever dare to step foot inside house number 7? More importantly, how far would you go to investigate a real estate deal that seems just a little too good to be true? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe, just maybe, double-check those rental agreements.